In the twilight of humanity's cosmic age, the Galactic Archive on the remote world of Imperium 3 stood as the last bastion of accumulated wisdom. It held records spanning 100,000 years, the repository of everything that humanity had once been, its triumphs, mistakes, loves, wars, and, most importantly, its very existence. The archive had once welcomed visitors from all corners of the galaxy, a beacon of knowledge and unity, but now it stood under siege. The deep hum of the archive's energy shields reverberated through the cavernous halls, as a crimson glow bathed the arched ceilings, signaling an emergency. In the central command room, Kalen Morrow, head of security, clenched his jaw as he studied the holographic map of the facility. Red markers flickered over the surface of the planet, showing where the invaders had breached the outer perimeter. Kellen, a man built like a mountain with a head of graying hair that showed years of hard-won experience, turned to the team assembled in the room. "All right, everyone, listen up. The invaders are targeting the archive's main database. They want to wipe everything. Our history, our culture, our story. We can't let that happen." He looked over at Dr. Elias Trent, the lead historian, who was seated in front of a massive console, his fingers dancing over the keys as he activated the archive's security protocols. Elias was a slender man, with glasses that had long since fallen out of fashion. But he wore them anyway, a symbol of humanity's traditions. His gaze met Kellen's, and there was a flash of determination in his eyes. "Kellen, we've got to buy as much time as possible," Elias said. "I've started transferring the core database to the quantum vault, but the process is slow. If they breach the archive's inner sanctum before it's complete, everything will be lost." Kellen nodded. "We'll hold them off. That's what we're here for." Across the room, a holographic image flickered to life, depicting the angular face of an AI, designated Cyrus, that managed much of the archive's operations. The AI's artificial voice carried an edge of urgency. "Commander Morrow, I have analyzed the enemy's movements. They are converging on 3 key access points. If they breach those, they will gain direct access to the archive's main chamber." Kellen gestured to the soldiers in the room, a motley group of veterans, each armed with pulse rifles and a determination that would not be easily quashed. Among them stood Nico Valen, a scout with a reputation for being unflinching in the face of danger, and Orrin Bates, a former miner-turned-soldier, his bulky frame and powerful arms suggesting he was capable of tearing an enemy apart with his bare hands if it came to that. "Nico, Orrin," Kellen said, pointing at the holographic map. "You two take a squad and secure access point Bravo. We can't let them through. Dr. Trent, keep working on the data transfer. Cyrus, I need you to do whatever you can to slow them down, lock doors, reroute power, anything." The team nodded, each man knowing what was at stake. It wasn't just about survival, it was about preserving what humanity had left, their identity. The ground shook as the invaders pounded at the outer defenses, their energy weapons punching holes through the reinforced walls. Nico led his squad through the winding corridors of the archive, the distant sounds of battle echoing behind them. His heart raced, but his mind remained focused. He had grown up on a frontier world, one of the many that had fallen to the same alien force that now threatened the archive. This was personal. Orrin, lumbering beside him, grunted as they approached Bravo. "You think they know what they're trying to destroy?" he asked, his voice a deep rumble. Nico glanced at him, his expression hard. "They don't care. They're not here for knowledge. They're here for annihilation." The squad rounded a corner, coming face to face with a hastily erected barricade, where a few of the archive's security personnel were already preparing for the coming assault. They were pale and visibly shaken, most of them archivists who had never seen real combat. Nico took a deep breath, pushing aside his own fears. He needed to inspire them. "All right, listen up," Nico called, his voice cutting through the clamor. "They're coming for our history. They want to erase everything that makes us who we are. We don't have the luxury of fear right now. We stand our ground, or we lose everything. You want your children to know where they came from? Then fight, damn it." The security personnel tightened their grips on their weapons, nodding as determination replaced their fear. Moments later, the first wave of alien invaders appeared. Life, insectoid creatures with chitinous armor and glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the dim light of the corridor. They moved with a deadly grace, their weapons crackling with energy. Nico raised his rifle, the pulse of the weapon lighting up the dark. "Open fire!" The corridor erupted in a frenzy of light and sound. Pulse rounds tore into the alien ranks, the creatures shrieking as they fell. But for every one that was cut down, two more seemed to take its place. The aliens pushed forward relentlessly, their weapons searing holes through the barricade, the acrid scent of burning metal and flesh filling the air. Orin roared as he stood his ground, his massive frame shielding one of the archivists as an alien lunged at them. He brought his rifle down like a club, smashing the creature to the ground, its carapace cracking under the impact. He grinned, savage satisfaction in his eyes. "They're not getting through," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the corridor. In the main control room, Elias watched the feed from the security cameras, his heart pounding as he saw the chaos unfolding across the archive. He could see Nico and Orin fighting tooth and nail to hold the line, their bravery a testament to humanity's resilience. But he knew they couldn't hold out forever. "Cyrus, status on the quantum vault transfer," Elias asked, his voice strained. 40% complete, Cyrus replied. "At the current rate we need another 30 minutes, but the enemy is advancing faster than anticipated." Elias cursed under his breath. They needed more time. He looked around the control room, his eyes falling on a series of manual override levers, emergency containment measures that could seal sections of the archive, buying them precious minutes. But activating them would mean trapping anyone still in those sections. Callan noticed his hesitation. "Do it, Elias," he said, his voice firm. "It's the only way." Elias swallowed hard, his hand trembling as he reached for the first lever. He closed his eyes for a moment, offering a silent apology to those who would be caught on the wrong side. Then he pulled it. Across the archive, heavy blast doors slammed shut, sealing off entire wings. Nico glanced back as the doors closed behind him, cutting off their route of retreat. He understood immediately what had happened, a grim smile crossing his lips. "Looks like we're in this for the long haul, Orin," he said, firing another burst at the oncoming aliens. Orin nodded, unbothered. Wouldn't have it any other way. Back in the control room, Kellen paced, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. The invaders had breached 2 of the 3 access points, and the third was under heavy assault. He turned to the soldiers still with him, a small group, their faces etched with exhaustion, but their eyes still burning with determination. "We're moving to access point Alpha," Kellen said. "If they get through there, it's over. We hold them, or we die trying." The men nodded, no words needed. They knew what was at stake. As they moved out, Kellen couldn't help but think of his own family. Long gone now, victims of the same enemy that now threatened the archive. He had lost everything once, and now he stood to lose the last piece of what they had fought for. But he would not let it end here. Not without a fight. The battle at Access Point Alpha was brutal. The aliens poured through the breach, their relentless advance met by the desperate resistance of Kellen and his men. The corridor became a kill zone, the walls scorched and pitted from energy blasts. The human defenders fought with everything they had, pulse rifles, grenades, even hand-to-hand combat when the aliens got too close. Kellen fired until its rifle overheated, then swung it like a club, knocking an alien off its feet. He felt the burn of a glancing energy bolt across his arm, but he ignored the pain, his focus on keeping the invaders away from the main chamber. Beside him, one of his men fell. A scream cut short as an alien spear impaled him. Kellen roared in fury, driving the creature back, his heart pounding in his ears. They were being pushed back inch by inch, but they couldn't afford to give any more ground. Suddenly, the corridor lights flickered, and Cyrus's voice echoed through the comms. "Commander Morrow, I have rerouted additional power to the containment field. It will hold for a short time, but you must fall back to the main chamber." Cullen glanced at the dwindling number of men beside him. They were bloodied, battered, but still standing. He nodded. "All right, fall back." The retreat was chaotic. the remaining defenders firing as they moved, trying to keep the aliens at bay. They fell back to the main chamber, where Elias was still working furiously at the console, his face pale but resolute. "Status, Elias?" Kellen called as he and his men took up defensive positions. 85%, Elias replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "Just a few more minutes." The doors to the main chamber shuddered as the aliens began their assault, their weapons pounding against the reinforced metal. Kellen took a deep breath, his eyes meeting those of his men. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but they had one last stand to make. "This is it, boys," Kellen said, his voice steady. "We hold them here. For humanity. For everything we've lost, and everything we've saved." The men nodded, their grips tightening on their weapons. The doors buckled, then burst open, and the aliens poured through. The defenders opened fire, the chamber filled with the roar of battle. Kellen fought with everything he had, his movements fueled by sheer willpower, his mind focused on one goal: buying Elias the time he needed. Elias's hands flew over the console, his eyes darting between the screen and the chaos unfolding around him. The transfer bar edged closer to completion, the seconds feeling like an eternity. He could hear the screams of the dying, the roar of weapons fire, but he forced himself to focus. This was humanity's legacy. He couldn't fail. 98%, he muttered, his heart pounding. "Come on, come on." Kellen fought beside him, his rifle empty, using the weapon as a makeshift club. He could feel his strength waning, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him, but he refused to give in. He glanced back at Elias, his voice hoarse as he called out, "How much longer?" "Done," Elias shouted, his voice filled with relief and exhaustion. "The transfer is complete." Cyrus's voice echoed through the chamber. "Quantum vault secured, all data preserved." "My lord." Kellen allowed himself a brief moment of relief, a smile crossing his bloodied face. They had done it. They had saved humanity's legacy. But the battle wasn't over. The aliens continued their relentless advance, and Kellen knew they wouldn't be able to hold out much longer. He looked at Elias, his eyes filled with determination. "Get to the emergency escape pods, take the data and go." Elias shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." Kellen grabbed him by the collar, pulling him close. "You have to. This isn't about us. It's about them. Go!" Elias hesitated, then nodded, tears in his eyes. He turned and ran, Cyrus guiding him towards the escape pods. Kellen turned back to the battle, a fierce grin on his face. "All right, you bastards," he muttered, raising his makeshift weapon. "Let's see how many of you I can take with me." And with that, he charged, a final roar echoing through the chamber as he fought to the very end, buying the time needed for humanity's story to live on. The escape pod shot into the dark void of space, the archive's surface below lit with the fires of battle. Elias watched from the small viewport, his heart heavy with grief, but also with hope. The data was secure. The story of humanity, its triumphs, its failures, its very essence, was safe. And as long as the story survived, humanity would never truly be gone.